Should we put the mics out? So what's wrong? Yeah. So we don't have enough space.
I know, but they're all refusing to move from the back, and they all want to sit on a normal seat. They don't want to sit on these seats.
But that's a safety requirement.
Yeah. So
you
there's
can't
a lady and a walker up the back.
Yeah.
And no one else. There was one nice gentleman who went to move for me, but no one else will move up the road for him. So I said, you know what, just don't worry about it. So we're directing everyone now. We've closed that door. We're directing everyone here.
Yep. So that area is pretty cool. There's a couple of seats.
But they won't move up.
This area is.
Because they don't want to sit next to me. And then I said to them, you can't sit with your friends. One district said, I'll take these away.
Yeah.
Some people are good.
I think that's it, eh?
They've registered everybody. I just need to find Greg.
See.
Greg, I haven't seen Greg.
The audio.
Yeah, no, they're at the back. They're ready to go. So I reckon right on 9 o'clock, get started. We'll put these out now.
Yep.
Ready? Members, special guests, ladies and gentlemen, and to those joining us online, good morning and welcome. My name is Greg Applin and I'm joining you again today as your Master of Ceremonies for Day 2 of Congress and the Annual General Meeting. Shortly I'll hand over to the Acting President, Mr Ray James, who will commence the AGM for 2019. Today's schedule will include a break at mid-morning, a light lunch around 12 noon, which will be served outside, and there will be some shade and seating available. So please do follow the directions of Anzac House staff. We will look at a break this afternoon at a convenient point as well. Now for a few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today we're here in the Albury Entertainment Centre Theatre. In case of an emergency, I do ask that you familiarise yourself with the emergency exits clearly marked around the theatre area. Should an emergency arise, you'll hear a beep, you'll see an amber light, and in the first instance, just prepare to evacuate. When you do hear a whoop sound, if that does occur, and you see a red light, you'd need to move to the nearest emergency exit and head to the assembly point in QE2 Square, the green space where you had lunch yesterday. During any emergency, please follow directions given by the fire wardens. You can locate the bathroom facilities in the foyer. The designated smoking area is outside the building in QE2 Square. Now, please observe any directions and signage given to you by the Albury Entertainment Centre or Anzac House team. If you haven't already done so, this is the time to please turn off your mobile phone or to turn it to silent. And I'll give you 10 seconds to do so. Thank you very much. Should the need arise for first aid, the team from St John Ambulance will be able to assist you in the foyer outside the theatre. The trade exhibitors are here again with us today. They are in the hall where they were yesterday. Please, if you haven't already, take the time to visit, have a chat to them about the services they are providing to veterans. Now, in the theatre today, we ask that only delegates and alternates are seated downstairs. If you're an observer, please would you be seated upstairs and make your way there now if you do happen to be downstairs. Please note today's sessions are being recorded and are being live streamed. Before I hand over to the Acting President to commence the AGM, all delegates by now should have collected their voting device. If you haven't done this, please make yourself known by raising your hand and an Anzac House team member will come and assist you. But you do need to have your voting devices with you at this time. It's important to note that these voting devices cannot be taken outside the theatre. If they are, they will deactivate. These devices can't be used until voting for each motion opens. And a word of caution, if you would please leave them at your seat when heading outside. We don't want them being lost. At the end of today's AGM, please ensure you do return that voting device to an Anzac House team member. And that's because if you don't follow that advice, it will result in a replacement fee being charged to your sub-district or district council, your sub-branch or district council, and I'm sure nobody wants that to happen. So that concludes the housekeeping matters. Members, I now call on RSL New South Wales Acting President, Mr Ray James, to open the 2019 AGM. Mr Ray James.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Delegates, members, could we just pause for a minute of silence and remember our fallen comrades, please? May remain seated. Just bow your heads and remember. Lest we forget. Thank you. In accordance with clause 21.6 of the Constitution, I confirm that a quorum is present and I declare the 2019 AGM open. Good morning, delegates, special guests, and to those who are joining us online. Clause 21.3, the RSL New South Wales Constitution states that every state congress, the state president will be appointed as the chairman. If the state president is unwilling or unable to act, a vice president will be appointed as chairman. As such, I will be chairing this AGM here in Albury today. I'd like to firstly acknowledge and introduce my fellow directors seated here on stage, who by now you would have all had an opportunity to meet over the last 2 days. Seated on my right is Sophie Ray, Philip Bridie, David Bell, he's moved the other side, and Sandra, John Hutchison and Sandra Lemkin. Seated on my left are David Bell, Jonathan Tuckfield, Brian Slattery and Philip Chin. And also joining us on stage is Nick Mowat, our Company Secretary, who'll be taking the minutes here today of the meeting. I'll now outline the rules and procedures for debate at today's AGM in accordance with Bylaw 12. Only the nominated delegate may speak to a motion except when the delegate is not in the room. Then the alternate delegate may speak. The proposer of a motion must move the motion, which must then be seconded. The proposer will have 4 minutes to speak in favour of the motion. after it has been seconded. The delegate who seconds the motion has 3 minutes to speak after the proposer has spoken in favour of the motion. When speaking, please state your name, sub-branch or district council you are representing. Any delegate who wishes to speak for or against the motion will each have 3 minutes to speak. Should a delegate speak against the motion, the proposer may exercise the right of reply. They will have 2 minutes to further support the motion. Microphones are located in the aisles for delegates. Anzac House staff will be on hand to assist. And as usual, please address all comments and questions through the chair. In accordance with Bylaw 10, item 25, voting on motions will be by electronic device. These devices are provided by Lumi Technologies. Your Lumi voting device will activate and display your voting options when it is time to vote. At this time, you will have 20 seconds to select either 1 for the motion or 2 against the motion. No other buttons are required to be pressed. Unless resolved otherwise by Congress, all voting data will be retained at completion of the AGM. In accordance with the bylaws, voting data will be available to sub-branches upon request. I'll now move on to the appointments for the AGM. And the board at this time nominates James Dallas, Defence Cares Manager for Claims and Advocacy, to be the timekeeper for the AGM. Are there any further nominations? As we have no more than one nomination, I'll now... we have got one nomination, so I say that James Dallas is our timekeeper for the AGM. The timekeeper will be seated on the stage and he will be using his phone, playing with his phone, as people have mentioned, but that is his timer. I now call for nominations for Suspensions Committee in accordance with Bylaw 13. And the following delegates were nominated at the... some were nominated at the 2018 AGM. Mr Terry Guild. Terry, will you like to be on the Suspensions Committee for 2019? Brian Slattery, are you willing to serve on the Suspension Committee in 2019? No, he can't, sorry. That was last year. Mr Gary Mason, are you willing to serve on the Suspension Committee?
Where is he?
I believe Gary is stepping aside. No?
Where is
He's
he?
here. Gary, are you willing to stand?
Doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're stepping aside. And Ken Craddock? Is Ken Craddock here?
Yep, here.
Are you willing to stand on the Suspension Committee? Thank you. Mr Ken Craddock. Alan Barnes, are you willing to stand on the Suspensions Committee?
Yes.
Mr Jeff Lazor, nominated. Are you willing to stand on the Suspensions Committee?
I am.
I call for further nominations for the Suspensions Committee from the floor. Sorry? Dave Pankhurst. Dave, are you willing to stand on the Suspensions Committee?
If you want me to, yeah, you should be.
Up the back. Dave? Yes? Okay.
Brian can be on the committee and he's nominating.
Okay.
You can do it, Ray, if you want. I didn't think it was part of it. Yeah, no, you can. Absolutely.
Okay, just been informed that Mr Brian Slattery, Board of Director member, is also a nomination and he's standing on the Suspension Committee. I now have 6. Are there any more nominations for the Suspensions Committee? We've got a minimum of 5, but we can have more. If there's no more nominations, I declare that Mr Terry Guild, Brian Slattery, Ken Craddock, Alan Barnes, and Jeff Lazor are members of... Sorry?
One more. Pankhurst.
And Pankhurst, sorry. Are members of the Suspension Committee. All those in favour of the nominations on the Suspension Committee? All in favour? Aye. Against? Declared it carried. Are there any motions received for the Suspensions Committee? Where's the State Secretary?
One.
One. Can you bring him up, please? Just to repeat, in accordance with Bylaw 13, any motion to be considered by the Suspension Committee must be in writing on sub-branch or district council letterhead, signed by the President and Secretary of the sub-branch or district council and handed to me at the meeting.
So we just need the suspension committee to make their way to the back of the room.
Both motions can go forward. Could the Suspension Committee please move to the back of the room and link up with the State Secretary? Please. Okay, short and sweet. I now adjourn the meeting whilst the Suspension Committee convenes to consider the motion submitted. Now, I suggest you don't go too far, but those who need a puff or whatever, go to the toilet and that. This is the time to do it. We can't continue the AGM until the Suspension Committee have adjudicated on the two motions received. So the meeting is adjourned. We haven't done the test on the machines yet.
What's the mighty intramural one? What was it? Did you see what it was?
Yeah, about the $5 membership fees.
As well as the other one.
No, sorry, no. The gold card, the DVA card.
But that's got nothing to do with the Congress. It's not urgent.
I don't think the suspension committee will have that one.
Neither one will be turned up. We haven't done the testing of the machines yet.
Testing
the
voting.
handsets.
He was supposed to do that.
the members still have to approve it, don't they?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I think you have to read it and the members still have to accept it.
Microphone's on.
Do I have to read this motion?
So does Ron have to read out the revised law? Health scheme.
Welcome back, members. We'll re-adjourn. Okay. Reconvene, sorry. What we'll do is, there was 3 motions received. 2 were declined as not urgent, and 1 will go forward. There's amendments to it, so we will get copies to every delegate. The motion will be heard as the last motion of business on today's agenda. Are there any questions? Okay. There were 3 motions put forward. The one that was accepted was in relation from the Intramural District Council in relation to the DVA allied health treatments. But it has to be reworded. There's some amendments to that. The next motion that was deemed not urgent at this AGM was from the Teachers RSL sub-branch in relation to, the sub-branch insurance policies. And the Windsor and District RSL sub-branch in relation to capitation fees, subsidised fees, and I'll have something to say about that at the conclusion of today's AGM. They were the 3 motions. That's the motion we got here, and I said I'll speak on that. It was classed as not urgent for this AGM today, and I'll have something to say about that after the AGM, because I can't say it during the AGM. Membership fees, subsidised membership fees. That's what I just said, yeah. Okay, quiet please. We'll now move on to items of business for the 2019 AGM as outlined in the agenda. Item 2, that State Congress approves the minutes of the 2018 Annual State Congress. All in favour? Against? Declared it carried. Approve the minutes of the 2018 Extraordinary State Congress. All in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Notes to the CEO's report on the strategic plan for the RSL New South Wales. Notes to the financial statements and auditor report for RSL New South Wales for financial year ending 30th of June 2019 and the annual report of RSL New South Wales for the year ending 30th of June 2019, which have been lodged with the Minister. Lodged before this Congress, this AGM.
That's correct. 2018 report.
2018 report, yeah.
18-19 report. Annual report for the year ended 30 June
It's
2019.
it's year ending report, ending financial year, 30th of June 2019. Okay, delegates, we'll now test our voting devices. Ensure that they work and you're familiar with them. And we'll know how many delegates are actually in the room. Is everybody ready and waiting? Eyes down. Remember, there's only 2 buttons you need to worry about, and that's 1 and 2, but I'll go through it. Voting for any motion will be number 1 button, number 2 button is against the motion. And the test resolution is, Ben Cummings, did he make the right decision in reversing the 6 again call in the NRL?
1 or 2.
You have 20 seconds.
How do you know you voted?
No, it's coming. 20 seconds. 1,
Oh,
1 or 2,
right.
1 or 2.
The numbers on the screen are the first numbers.
A bit worried about the 32.6.
It's a bit close, isn't it? That's a bit of a... That's the same vote as the Constitution on it. 32.
Has anyone got an issue with their device? Yes?
Yeah, there's one over there.
Ben Cummins, yeah. Okay. Staff, Anzac House staff, where are they?
They're coming.
They're coming. Just hold your hand up till someone comes and rectify your problem with your device. What do you say?
It's too small, he can't.
Big thumbs. Big thumbs. Is everybody comfortable with their little device? Another one down here? Yep. Okay, anybody else? We're all right to go. Speak. Okay. Well, thank you all for that. And now we'll go into the items of business. First motion is standing motion, and it is displayed on the screen behind me. Membership fees. That in accordance with the RSL New South Wales Constitution, Clause 16.7 and Bylaw Number 2, Item 43, the annual subscription for 2020 be set at $35, and that the breakdown for the annual subscription be as follows. Capitation fees to RSL New South Wales be $25 and the retention fee to RSL sub-branch be $10. Proposed by RSL New South Wales Board. I'll call on proposer Philip Chin to move the motion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I put the motion to the delegates.
I ask for a seconder for the motion.
Brian Slattery, I second the motion.
You want to speak on the motion, Philip? Not really?
No, it's quite self-explanatory.
I'll call on anyone against the motion. Microphone where? Microphone 3.
Tony Diabetic, Cronulla sub-branch. I speak against the motion. I think $35 after yesterday's Treasurer's report is a ridiculous amount for our older Second World War veterans to have to pay each year. About half of ours we have to substitute for them.
Seconder, you wish to speak, Brian?
I would just like to say that in the cases that were just mentioned about perhaps the older members of sub-branches or those that are infirmed or unable to pay their fees, it is quite a legitimate expense for the sub-branch to pay those fees on their behalf. And I think that while this motion is a standard one and those fees have been the same for a long, long time, I believe that the membership fee and the membership structure needs a complete overhaul and review to take us to the next 10 or 20 years. And that includes the size of certain sub-branches, includes the operation of the district councils. So I'm at this stage, I do support the motion because I think there are other things in the wind that will take care of the angst of some of the sub-branches regarding that.
Any further speakers against the motion? No further speakers, obviously. So delegates, I now ask you to vote on the motion. Press 1 for or 2 against. %86 for the motion, 14% against. I declare the motion carried. Next motion is a special resolution and is displayed on the screen, hopefully, shortly. Okay, adopt the new constitution. That the constitution annexed to the circulated with the notice of the meeting as Annex B to be adopted as the Constitution of RSL New South Wales in place of the existing constitution with effect from 1 December 2019, proposed by RSL New South Wales Board, and I call upon the proposer to this motion being Brian Slattery.
Yes, I'll put the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a seconder for that motion.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern District. I second the motion.
Thank you.
And I reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Brian, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Board, I'll shortly propose the motion to adopt the new Constitution. Firstly, however, I would like to talk about some of the issues which have been the subject of inaccurate commentary from a number of members and sub-branches. The current Board is well aware that it is answerable to the membership, including sub-branches with large and small membership numbers and sub-branches with large and small bank balances. We also accept that it is not always possible for everyone to agree on everything, but we do expect that you make your decisions based on what is best for the organisation as a whole. In December, you told us that the Constitution we presented was not good enough. We listened, and through the survey conducted in January, you told us what you wanted changed and that you wanted to be consulted some more. Accordingly, in conjunction with your district council presidents, we set up the DC7 group to rewrite the Constitution and to keep you informed. The DC7 did not hold back and told us in no uncertain terms what you, the members, would expect. The December vote showed that many of you wanted to stay as you are. The proposed Constitution gives that choice. Sub-branches can remain as unincorporated associations or they can choose to incorporate. Contrary to the conspiracy theorists out there, we do not want to take your money. But we want to ensure that the large sums of charitable funds that are currently held by sub-branches are invested wisely and that the income is spent on veterans' welfare, our core charitable purpose. This constitution reaffirms the grassroots nature of the League. It maintains district councils but beefs up the checks and balances so that members and sub-branches, through their district councils, have more say in what's happening. Further, it gives the district councils power to validate the appointment of independent directors and, with a 2/3 majority, to call an extraordinary general meeting. It determines that the current board will not be remunerated and leaves future remuneration considerations in the hands of members through Congress. It also removes the prescriptive requirement for expensive annual audits for the majority of sub-branches. It's not an entirely new constitution. Rather, it is a combination of the existing constitution and amendments which make it more relevant and consistent with the RSL New South Wales Act. All the changes are set out in a marked up version and a transition table on our website. There is no secret agenda. Some sub-branches represented here today may be fairly comfortable with most of the document, but are stuck on one issue or another. Perhaps you're opposed to the idea of proxy voting, or using the word contract irks you for some reason. Maybe you're worried about a future vote to remunerate the board. As it happens, those particular issues received extra scrutiny from the DC7 drafting team, and they opted to leave them in. The reality is that for every member who opposes them, another sees them as necessary for the times we live in. So I ask those of you considering a protest vote, please do not let a single concern, something that is subject to change in the future, kill a constitution that it will be good for the future of the League. This is not the board's constitution, but the result of hundreds of volunteer hours put in by your DC presidents and the elected DC7, working with submissions from you, the sub-branches. It is not change for the sake of change. It is sensible reform and a firm foundation upon which RSL New South Wales can build and continue to play its part as a preeminent ESO for the next 100 years. Mr Chairman, I put the motion.
Is there a delegate that wishes to speak against the motion?
Over here.
Speaker number 4.
John Gregg.
Yep.
John Gregg, Bundeena Sub-Branch. I'm the delegate. Look, yesterday afternoon, the acting president answered 2 questions from Bundeena, which I'd asked during the morning session. The first one concerned appointed directors. The acting president used words to the effect that the 3 current appointed directors... Have I lost it? No, I've still got it. The 3 appointed directors were being treated as if they were members of State Council. Now, I'm not sure that I heard that correctly. I'm not sure that it is correct, but I have asked for clarification. But as far as we're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, the situation is not the individuals that are there now. The situation is what's actually in the definitions. And the problem will continue for future appointees as well as the 3 current ones. So that is still a concern until the definitions in the Constitution are actually amended. The second answer was in relation to a question about sub-branches putting motions forward to Congress. Now, whoever perhaps provided the acting president with his answer, I don't think they've given the answer or given the full story, or perhaps only half of the truth. Yes, clause 8.12 of the draft constitution allows a sub-branch to submit any proposed resolution to the district council, but only if the resolution is endorsed does the district council put it forward. And as you're aware, the current constitution allows unendorsed motions to be put forward. There's one, in fact, that you'll consider today. It's motion 13 from Byron Bay Sub-Branch. The new draft constitution will not allow that situation to actually occur. And it's a little worse than that. If you look at the current District Council SOP, clause 5.1.1, the District Council President or the delegate may raise any endorsed motion at Congress at the AGM. But the supporting argument that may go along with that can only be put with the approval of the board. Now that's there in that SOP. Whether that continues, well, who knows, because we haven't seen the final version of the SOP. So clauses 41.1b and 41.2c and bylaw 5 are very, very important as far as putting motions forward and actually having them heard at Congress or AGM, which is the current situation as far as Byron Bay's unendorsed motion is concerned. So members, I would ask you to think very, very carefully to retain your control of your organisation as to how you vote.
Can I call on the seconder to respond, please, if he wishes to speak?
Well, good morning, fellow members, ladies and gentlemen. As our patron, the Governor, told us yesterday, after 103 years, we're on the verge of a historical decision to take RSL New South Wales forward. Camaraderie, commemoration, care and advocacy for our veterans and their families needs to be our focus and not continued navel gazing. We must move on. This Constitution reflects the wishes of the members and also the need to ensure that RSL New South Wales is in compliance with the RSL New South Wales Act 2018 and ACNC requirements. It presents minimal change for members and sub-branches. However, it pays attention to the checks and balances required for RSL New South Wales to function effectively. Following the outcomes of the Callaghan and Bergen inquiries, it is vital that governance mechanisms are strengthened. These include creation of a board of directors, as required by the RSL New South Wales Act, and requirements for much greater transparency and accountability than in the past. The District President's Council, for example, will have considerable powers to hold the board to account and will act as a much more effective conduit between the membership and sub-branches and the board. This Constitution is fair, balanced, sound and sensible. It provides a suitable basis to take RSL New South Wales forward. So on behalf of the District Council 7, of which I was elected to be a part, and also Central Southern District Council, I strongly urge all delegates to support it. This will mean that we can devote our time and energies going forward to work on the more important core business of caring for our veterans and their families. Thank you.
A further speaker against the motion, number 6.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, fellow delegates. My name is Mike Fish. I'm the Secretary of the Brooklyn Sub-Branch RSL. The good thing about this draft of the Constitution is that it is an improvement over the previous one. But the bad thing is that it's still not good enough. There appears to be a very large discrepancy in it with regard to responsibilities, obligations and operational requirements of the board. On the positive side, there is now proposed a District Council President's Forum that will be working directly with the board. Unfortunately, this District Council President's Forum may turn out to be a toothless tiger. I say this because we know that the subcommittee of district presidents was directly involved in drafting this new version of the Constitution. But it's hard to believe that that committee did not raise objections to the very obvious omissions in relation to the board, particularly as there were very strong representations provided from sub-branches and district councils in the feedback papers, at least one workshop, and further recommendations from the very expensive consultants SVA. It seems that most of this input has been totally ignored in this proposed constitution. As a result, the drafting process was flawed in that it looks to us to have made a pretense of seeking consultation and failed to act on the critical feedback received. So now we are being asked to approve a constitution in which accountability, duties and responsibilities of the board to the members of the RSL New South Wales continues to be unrecognised and unspecified. There is still a significant disconnect between what is acceptable to and are the expectations of the general membership and the attitude and performance of the board as expressed in this draft of the Constitution. We are also concerned that the proposed new Council of District Presidents may prove to not only to be proved toothless, but also administratively unwieldy and dysfunctional. Earlier this year, my sub-branch voted unanimously to pass a vote of no confidence in the board for a number of reasons. Some things have changed, and a large slice of our concerns have been addressed, but not enough has been corrected for our members to have sufficient confidence that we are in good hands going forward with this version of the Constitution. There are a significant number of things that need to be included in the Constitution. Of high importance are clear definitions and policies related to accountability, transparency, reporting, strategic development, budgeting and advocacy on behalf of the board. These would have been included had the extensive feedback been acted upon. The Brookland sub-branch remains resolutely opposed to approving this draft until these fundamentals of board transparency and accountability are addressed to our satisfaction. We are bitterly disappointed that the extensive sub-branch and feedback on these areas has apparently been ignored. Thank you.
Give the proposer the right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I think it's all been said. It's all been said over the last 12 months or so. We don't want to be back here in October next year making the decision that we're making now. In October next year, we want to make refinements that everyone has had a good long chance to think about. I reiterate that it's not always possible for everyone to agree on everything, but the decisions that are made have got to be based on what is the best interest of the organisation as a whole, and not individual members and not individual sub-branches. And as the seconder said, it's time for us to get back to our core business. Thank you.
Before I move on, could I just get a feeling from delegates? We've been debating this for the last 8 months at sub-branch level, district council level, and the forums and the DC7 with the feedback from everybody who wanted to give feedback, and there was over 162 sub-branches, 15 districts, and tens of 50-odd people, individuals, putting submissions through their district councils. Do we need to carry on the debate on something that we've been debating for the last 8 months? Could I have a show of hands and A for put the motion? Who's in favour of putting the motion? Who's against putting the motion? I think the A's have got it, I's have got it, whatever. Without further ado, delegates, I put the motion. Please vote, press 1 for the motion, press 2 against the motion. I declare the motion carried. How good's that? How good's that? I'll get more feeling version.
Well done, buddy.
Okay. 69.5. 69.5 and 30. Okay. Thank you, delegates. Following that result, the next three motions, 3, 4, 5 and 6, isn't it? Which are amendments to the previous constitution. No, sorry, it's still the current constitution till 1 December. Those motions may be withdrawn if those proposed by Chester Hill and I think Western Metropolitan District Council. Are those delegates prepared to withdraw those motions? No. Sorry?
Okay. We'll be in for another month and a half.
Can I have someone to the microphone to say, where are they? Oh, number 3.
No, not prepared to withdraw the motions, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps the first motion today sets the pace for next year, but I think the substance of motions 3, 4, 5 and 6 are relevant to the ongoing operations of RSL New South Wales and should be considered.
Fair enough. Okay. Microphone, yep. Amended clause 16.7 of the RSL Constitution, that clause 16.7 of the RSL New South Wales Constitution be amended to read as follows. Members are required to pay for their sub-branch annual membership fees of not less than $1 and not more than $10 as determined by their sub-branch, with part of this fee to be deemed the levy required to be paid in accordance with clause 16.6. Proposer, Chester Hill. I call on the proposer.
Yes, just to repeat, Lloyd Newman from Chester Hill, Carramar. Just a point on clause 16.6. I suspect that was probably written about 50 years ago. It's a funny little clause which says members must pay $1, which goes to state branch, as I understand it. But the substance, the main substance of this motion is that sub-branches should set a membership fee which suits their locality, their history, and the part of the fee to go to 16.6 is the reason that the minimum of $1 is set. I don't think anything above $10 is appropriate. Membership of RSL New South Wales is something of a privilege, not a penalty. I do believe that a reasonable membership fee is appropriate to retain the records of membership, if nothing else, but anything in excess of $10 required to be paid by a member is unreasonable, and I put the motion.
Is there a second to the motion? Yeah. Anybody want to speak against the motion? Yes, number 6.
Glenn Mount, Singleton RSL sub-branch. Mr President, even if we vote on this, due to the wording within that motion, it will only be valid for 30 days and will be totally irrelevant come the new constitution taking effect on the 1st of December.
Correct. A speaker for the motion again? Sorry, the seconder, sorry. Seconder for the motion. No, you don't want to speak? Okay.
Mr Chairman, I repeat that I believe the substance of motions 3, 4, 5 and 6 are relative to the ongoing operations of RSL New South Wales, and that the motion should be taken and, if necessary, scheduled for review. But I see no reason why it can't be adopted from the year 2021, with State Branch having already made the arrangements for fees payable for 2020.
That's not what the motion says, but can we just... any more speakers for or against? Yeah, Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn Mount again. Due to this being a constitutional matter, none of the wording can be adjusted.
Exactly. Is there any more speakers for or against the motion? Yes, I'm going to put the motion. I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against the motion.
Mr Chairman, I withdraw motions 4, 5 and 6.
Okay. Disregard my last. 3, 4, 5 and 6 have been withdrawn. 4, 5. Okay. Motion number 7. Veteran Affairs matters. Veteran card issue to allied veterans. That RSL New South Wales make representation to the Department of Veteran Affairs / Minister for Veteran Affairs to suggest that the proposed veterans card be also issued to allied veterans who are permanent residents in Australia. Proposed by Barrera. I call on the proposer of this motion, please. Okay, could you come to number 6 or 5? Or... Okay, hang on. Microphone.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandra Hawkins. I'm the Secretary of Barara RSL Club. RSL Sub-Branch, beg your pardon. The reason this motion, I put the motion that RSL as written on the board, because our president, not here, is an American. He was a tail gunner, or a gunner, on helicopters in the Vietnam War. And he doesn't qualify for many things, but we would like to see this that he could qualify for. And as Australia has lots of people who've come in, allied forces, have come to live in our country, a small gesture to them. I move the motion as written on the board. Thank you.
I forgot, there was a I need a delegate to second that before she spoke, but anyway, can I have a seconder, please? Someone second that motion? Yes? Derek Leslie? Okay. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? With no more speakers for or against the motion, I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against the motion. $72.4 for the motion, 27.6. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 8, medical practitioner rebate. That RSL New South Wales approach the Department of Veteran Affairs to lobby that the medical fraternity and its associated bodies be allowed to receive the same rate of compensation for services rendered to veterans who either possess a white card or gold card as they would be persons treated under the under the Government's of Work Cover Agreement. Proposed by Parks. I call on the proposer.
Yeah, Paul Thomas from the Parks RSL. I'm the Secretary Treasurer there. the motion's up there for everyone to see. The supporting arguments are there. Plus, I would also like to report on the matter after it's seconded.
Can I get a seconder for the motion, please? Number 4.
Second that, Mr Chairman.
Greg
Western District, Greg Salmon.
Yep. Okay, you want to speak on the motion?
Yes, the supporting arguments are in your documents, but I'd also like to report on a couple of little things that I found that during this background into this incident of what's been going on. It's been widely reported that many ex-service personnel have to wait excessive periods when seeking treatment for PTSD or any other psychiatric conditions. And a lot of this is due to the fact that many psychiatric doctors have what they call closed consultation appointments, when in fact it all comes back to a lack of financial compensation that they receive from Veterans Affairs for services provided to both service or ex-service personnel, especially in preference to the general public work cover or NDIS customers. Why do many of the personnel have to travel extraordinary distances to seek professional help? Some have to travel interstate when they can do the travel to these distances at a rate for travelling costs and meals, and in some cases accommodation can skyrocket. I've been reported to me that one psychiatric doctor who is treating in the Central West treats 2 gentlemen that have to travel over 1,000 kilometres, which means that the travelling costs plus accommodation and meals can amount to a fair bit of money. I think that is absolutely ludicrous, especially when those 2 gentlemen could be treated in another major town closer to their home. My third point, why do taxi operators have to sort of actively engage to veterans to take people to appointments, not only in their own into other close by towns, but to Sydney and return, when the travelling costs, if they're paid directly to the personnel or the ex-service personnel, is a lot less, because taxi operators, as we all know, they receive waiting time plus meals as well. Finally, if the rates that doctors are matched with payments are made by work cover and NDIS, the scheme, we would be a lot better off, and Veterans Affairs would have more funds to assist ex-service personnel in other areas.
Thank you. Does a seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Delegates, Western District support the Parks motion. The study by doctors to gain the skills that we demand should be reflected in their rewards. Some $800,000 is paid in the Western area by medical services for travel. This could be diverted to doctors, and in doing so they may venture outside the big cities to smaller country centres for extra stay. It would be an encouragement for the doctors to stay on. Thank you.
Is there anyone wish to speak against the motion? With no further speakers, I put the motion. $96.9, 3.1 against. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 9. Psychiatric treatment waiting times. That RSL New South Wales investigate excessive waiting time for veterans seeking psychiatric appointments. Proposed by Central Southern.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern District. I move the motion and reserve the right to speak to it.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the motion? Okay, can the proposer please speak for the motion?
As further to the submission, a major concern for all of us who are looking to our veterans' health and well-being is their mental health, and I think we could all agree on that. I stand here before you as an example of that. We have become aware that DVA rates of remuneration for psychiatrists and other mental health professionals and workers are considerably less than those available for NDIS and other patients. This is wrong and it needs to be fixed. The result is that some mental health professionals favour better paying clients and patients over veterans. Again, this is wrong and this needs to be fixed. We strongly urge RSL New South Wales to advocate, probably in collaboration with RSL National and through the Federal Minister for Veterans Affairs, to redress this situation. Thank you.
Does the seconder wish to speak? Reserve. Anybody want to speak against the motion? No further speakers for or against the motion. I put the motion. Press 1 for the motion, 2 against. (97.6) for the motion, 2.4 against. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 10, defence pensions incongruent with age and other pensions increases. That RSL New South Wales take action to address the government the continued issue of defence pensions falling behind in their rate of increase compared to age and other pension increases. Proposed by Brooklyn. Can I call on the proposer, please? Derek.
Mike Fish, Secretary of the...
Sorry, can you speak? Is it on?
Mike Fish, Secretary of the Brooklyn Sub-Branch. I would like to put the motion. You have the information on your documents in support.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Matraville. Can I speak on the motion?
I would remind delegates that this is a repeat motion. It came up from, it was voted on last year, on which 98% of you have voted in favour. It's come up again because of lack of action and effectiveness in progressing the motion. So we ask for re-endorsement and support going forward.
Seconder wish to speak? Reserve the right. Anyone to speak against? No one to speak against? Seconder, no one? Without any further speakers, I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against.
Have you ever seen 100%?
I don't think there's ever been that result. I don't know. Is there someone back in the 60s? No. Okay. I declare the motion carried.
I've never seen that before in 20 years.
Okay. Veteran question on 2021 census. That RSL New South Wales, on behalf of its members and through the appropriate sorry?
No, 11.
I got the wrong one.
11.
Number 11,
pensions.
right? More than again.
I've gone one ahead. Defence pensions. Lucky you correct me. They corrected me before you. Defence pensions and self-management super fund sacks. That RSL New South Wales take action to address with government the issue of defence pensions being included in the calculation of the gross value of ex-defence members' self-managed super funds, and that the imposition thereof the tax of 15% for any values above the newly set cap. Proposed again by Brooklyn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike Fish, again, Secretary of Brooklyn Sub-Branch.
Okay.
Sorry, I would like to put the motion.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Yep, Derek Leslie. Okay, speak on the motion.
Thank you. This is another motion that came up at last year's Congress, and once again you voted overwhelmingly in its support. just to remind you, the way in which this affects the DFRB pension fund paid is that it is assessed at 16 times the annual value of the annual paid pension, 16 times. A massive amount, percentage-wise, in compared against the newly set cap on superannuation. It is completely unfair that our defence pensions should be taxed in any form, and I think it's unethical and unconscionable of the government to have done this. I commend the motion to you and ask again for your support.
Are there any speakers against the motion? Does a seconder wish to speak?
Yes, Derek Leslie, Northern Metropolitan. I just implore the board to step forward in their advocacy role in this motion and the motion we just passed. Thank you.
Yep, definitely. Okay, no more speakers? For or against the motion? I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against the motion. Veteran Advocacy Committee. Yeah.
Veteran Services and Advocacy and Policy Committee.
Just on that, the board has put together a committee in relation to these issues to take it forward, okay, on veterans issues. So we have already started in that area in recent weeks. Motion number 12, veteran question on the 2021 census, that RSL New South Wales on behalf of its members and through the appropriate channel make representation to the Minister for Veterans and Defence Personnel and Assistant Treasurer to reaffirm the critical importance of the inclusion of a question in the 2021 census identifying service in the Australian Defence Force ADF. Proposed by Kirribilli. Can the proposer... What is the proposer?
Bronte Pollard, delegate for Kirribilli sub-branch. I propose the motion.
Seconder for the motion? Derek Leslie from Brooklyn. Oh, Northern Metropolitan, sorry. Proposer wish to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. As outlined in the annual report, RSL New South Wales has done a lot of great work in taking the lead on having veterans question included on the 2021 census. As has been the past with decisions like this with government, we just need to make sure that we maintain pressure and make sure that this question is included on the census. It's not only an important question for RSL New South Wales, but ESOs nationally, and as well as the Department of Veterans Affairs. I won't go through all the details in my supporting arguments. I think everyone fully understands the situation, but following the last federal election, we have had a change in the Assistant Secretary, the Assistant Treasurer's portfolio, who is under the purview for the census. So we just need to make sure that that pressure is maintained. I do note that the Minister for Veterans Affairs, Darren Chester, did mention it in his third annual address on the 16th of October. So there does still seem to be will within the government for this question to be included. I'd just like to make sure that we continue to take a lead position with advocacy and decisions on this matter. Thank you.
Is there any speakers against the motion? No more speakers for the motion? With no more speakers for or against the motion, I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against.
Ooh, someone hit the wrong button again.
I declare the motion carried. Okay, the next motion relates to social services and tax and is displayed shortly, hopefully. In accordance with Bylaw 11, item 19, Congress must decide whether to hear unendorsed motion 13 or not. Okay. That the New South Wales Government be lobbied to accept DVA file numbers to access concessions in New South Wales in place of Centrelink-DHS customer reference number CRN. Can I have the Speaker on that, proposer on that motion, please? Here he comes.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Rob Ask with Byron Bay Sub-Branch and Delegate. This motion was put to our District Council on the 25th of August. For some unknown reason, the documentation from the District Council President did not make it to headquarters or to State Branch in time for it to be included. We then forwarded on after that, and we wish it to be heard today.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Okay, seconded. Proposer, you speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. The information on the paperwork is straightforward. If you have a DVA number, you may not necessarily have a CRN number for some human services details in receiving some additional funding. And I'll give an example of if you wish to have a $180 family energy rebate, the requirement for that is a CRN number rather than a DVA number with New South Wales Government. Another one is if you have a spouse that has a pensioner concession card issued by DVA for an emergency ambulance, the New South Wales Health Billing Service won't recognise the DVA file number as a New South Wales resident pensioner for a free emergency travel card. I put the motion.
Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak on the motion? No more speakers for or against the motion. I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. I declare the motion carried. 96.8. Motion number 13. Use of DVA file number in New South Wales.
That's the one we've just done.
Oh, that's the one I've just done. I'm one behind.
Keep up, Ray.
2 pages. Okay, the next motion, just keeping you awake.
14.
It's nearly lunchtime. Motion number 14. RSL New South Wales comments to Productivity Commission. Comments to Productivity Commission. Okay, that RSL New South Wales revisit their comments to the Productivity Commission inquiry with regards to the Veterans Gold Card / White Cards and other entitlements and promulgate a more appropriate advice on the issue of veteran health cards. Proposed by Central Southern. Lee Cordner.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern District. I put the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Seconder to the motion.
Yeah, Colomitz Gerringdong. I second the motion.
Speak on the motion, please.
Most of us would be familiar with the recent Productivity Commission report into veterans. It makes interesting reading and there are many positive aspects. At this stage, government has not formally responded to its many recommendations. However, like me, many of you would have been shocked and dismayed to read that one of the recommendations is to remove the gold card. Decades of work by our predecessors were put into achieving these entitlements and benefits for our veterans. What is even more shocking is that the recommendation is based almost entirely upon a submission made by RSL New South Wales to the Productivity Commission. The RSL New South Wales submission is quoted several times and cited in detail in the body of the report. We asked Anzac House for advice on the author and the basis for the RSL New South Wales PC submission, and current board members and senior staff all ducked for cover. It seems that the submission was provided by the previous president without consultation with anyone. We urge RSL New South Wales to redress this situation in the strongest possible terms before decisions are made by government on the PC recommendations. Urgent action is required from RSL New South Wales to the Federal Minister for Veterans Affairs and DVA, and if necessary the Prime Minister, that the earlier RSL New South Wales advice was wrong, ill-informed, and that the submission was not authorised, and that RSL New South Wales strongly supports continuation of gold and white card arrangements, including veterans with qualifying service continuing to automatically receive a gold card at 70 years of age. Thank you.
Is there any speakers against the motion? I'll call on the seconder. Obviously, he wants to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Delegates, the submissions by RSL New South Wales to the Productivity Commission were flawed, were incorrect at law, and highly detrimental in effect. As the mover stated, these are hard fought for entitlements which are reflective of the nature of service. It is unconscionable of RSL New South Wales, and I'm not casting blame at any individuals or organisational groups, but it's unconscionable for our organisation to advocate against the interests of our members and our future members in an area as critical as these entitlements. Delegates, nonetheless, these submissions were put up in our name. They were put up in the name of RSL New South Wales. That fact alone was highly persuasive to the Productivity Commission in making its recommendation. It cited those submissions in its recommendation. Delegates, I anticipate a fight to keep the gold card. Certain organisations are taking up that fight already. Central Southern and the Naval Association are taking up this fight now. It would be a good start and a sign of good faith for RSL New South Wales to revisit its submissions per the motion, which would then support the fight we're taking up now. And in that light, I commend the motion and urge your support.
Any speakers against the motion? No. Or for? I'll put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. Somebody's got big thumbs. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 15. Motions actioned with shared responsibility that all motions approved at an RSL New South Wales Congress annual general meeting, an AGM, or an extraordinary general meeting, an EGM, be actioned with a shared responsibility which may vary depending on action or actions required between RSL New South Wales, the proposer and the endorser. Proposed by Kirribilli. Call on the proposer, please, to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Bronte Pollard, delegate for Kirribilli sub-branch, and I propose the motion.
Can I have a seconder for the motion? City Newcastle. Speak on the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. We propose that motions passed at Congress in the past have tended not to be completed as the proposer intended, and the outcome of the motion not clearly communicated to delegates and general membership. The former is totally unacceptable and demonstrates unprofessional business practice and governance, while the latter, demonstrates poor process. Having the proposer and endorser take part in ownership gives them ownership of the process, and also ensures that outcome and visibility to that and ensure success. That's it. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak against the motion?
Chairman?
Yep. Number two.
Paul Bryant, Far Western Metropolitan District Council. Thank you for the welcome.
They didn't think you were here, Paul.
Yeah, I realise that. That's why I haven't worried about the mic. Some motions are submitted by small sub-branches who may not be able to physically supply the members to follow up the action. However, if the motion is not clearly expressed, showing the intent expressly stated in their supporting statement, then the fault rests with the proposing and endorsing sub-branch, not with RSL New South Wales. The proposing sub-branch should have their district council representative follow up on any actions on any motions which are passed at annual state congress. Therefore, the regular district council president's meeting should have such motions set on their regular agenda as actionable items. Far Western Metropolitan District Council is against this motion, as it is not seen as being particularly feasible. Thank you.
Does the seconder wish to speak on the motion? Is there any further speakers for the motion or against the motion? Without further ado, sorry, where are we?
Back with his hand up, right up the back seat on the near Diane.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, up there.
Get the microphone up. Come down to microphone, or go to microphone 8. You're speaking for or against the motion?
I'm speaking for it. My name is Michael Ali. I'm the president of the Helensburgh RSL sub-branch. I think it's fairly important, all right, that no matter how small a sub-branch or how big it is, that the person who comes up with whatever information or changes that they're requesting, that they find out what the end result is going to be. Thank you.
Any more speakers speaking for the motion or against? For the motion.
For the motion?
Yep, number 4.
Roughly the same, John Drums, South West District Council President. Smaller sub-branches sometimes put motions to Congress. They're unable to actually get there, but they like to know what the outcome of the motion is. It's part of the democratic process, and I think they should get a report back on what happened. And it's pretty self-explanatory otherwise. Thank you.
Any more speakers for or against the motion? Without further ado, I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. (82.7) for the motion. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 16. Register of motions. That RSL New South Wales create, maintain and provide to members prior to State Congress each year a summary register of motions passed at the previous State Congress, showing for each motion an outlined plan for action, desired target or targets, and actual outcome or outcomes, including responsibilities for implementation by all stakeholders, including RSL New South Wales, proposer and endorser. Proposed by Kirribilli. Can I call on the proposer, please?
Bronte Pollard again, Kirribilli sub-branch, and I propose the motion.
Can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Derek Leslie, Northern Metropolitan District Council. Proposer, please speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Historically, motions passed at Congress, except for changes to the Constitution and bylaws, have been poorly actioned. A register will provide accountability to track the progress of motions with visibility to all stakeholders. The register will then double as a reporting mechanism to report outcomes achieved prior to the next state Congress. In addition, by cataloguing these yearly reports would provide sub-branches and future Congress agendas committees with a useful tool to determine the history of motions and to identify motions that may have been repetitive in nature. Thank you.
Does the seconder wish to speak at this point? No. Is there any speakers against the motion? Seeing there are no more speakers, I put the motion. Number 1 for the motion, number 2 against. (96.9) for the motion, 3.1 against. I declare the motion carried. Microphone? Yep. Okay, motion number 17. Summary of motions. That RSL New South Wales provide to members within 1 calendar month of the conclusion of the State Congress each year a summary (register) of motions that were passed at that meeting, to show for each motion an outlined plan for action with focus on desired targets and outcomes, including shared responsibilities for follow-up and implementation by all stakeholders, including RSL New South Wales, the proposer and the endorser. Proposed by Brooklyn. Could I have the proposer, please?
Mike Fish, Secretary of Brooklyn, RSL again.
Okay, can I have a seconder? Sorry, can I have a seconder? Yep, Derek Leslie, Northern Metropolitan District Council. Please present your motion, please. Your argument for the motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is a continuity of some of the difficulties which have been experienced in getting motions actioned in a satisfactory manner. To do it properly, each one of these motions should have a little mini project management plan at which somebody is responsible for taking it forward, and there is a feedback mechanism into the system, and for all members to be able to see what action has been taken, whether or a program going forward, so that they can see what timescales are involved. It's all part of the problem of making sure that members' wishes are carried forward into the future, and to make sure that these motions are treated with the respect and action they deserve.
Does the seconder wish to speak on the motion?
Yes, Mr. President. Derek Leslie, Northern Metropolitan. This motion complements the previous motion. It's not opposed to it or different or not in concert with it. This sets the scene, if you like, for the decisions we make at these congresses, for them to be acted on to match the previous motion in which their outcomes are delivered. So we're asking people to commit, particularly at Anzac House, to commit to action on motions that are passed at Congress, and to maintain a register of those motions and the actions carried out. Thank you.
Is there any Speakers against the motion. Microphone number 2.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern. I don't wish to speak against the motion, but I would propose an amendment to the motion. I wonder whether 1 calendar month is a feasible period of time for a plan for perhaps a complex matter to be put together, and I would like to move that we amend that to 2 calendar months to give a reasonable amount of time for the board and staff and others involved in what, as I said, might be quite complex matters to put together a sensible plan for dealing with it.
Proposer? Okay, accepted. Is there any more speakers for or against? Okay. Yep.
I'd just like to endorse the previous speaker. I think one...
Name, please.
Oh, Nick Hutchins, Darlington Point, Collie Amberley.
Yep.
Delegate.
Yep.
I think 1 month is just unreasonable. I personally would prefer 3 months, but maybe 2 months is all right. What's that?
2 months. It's all right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Without further ado, what I'll do is we've got an amendment to the motion. Is there anybody want to speak further on that amendment? It's 2 months. Okay, it's been accepted. So first off, I'll have an amendment to the motion replacing 1 month with 2 months. So I wish to put the amendment to the membership first. So all those in favour of changing 1 month to 2 months? Hines? Against? I declare that carried. So with the amendment to the motion being passed, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour of the motion with the amendment, press 1 for in favour of the motion, 2 against. I declared the motion carried, 97.3. Annual reporting number 18, motion number 18, that sub-branches may submit an attachment in their annual report that outline and promotes the efforts and achievements of sub-branches against the standard template and to be submitted accompanying the SBA proposed by Central Southern. Yes, microphone number 2.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern District. I move the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Second the motion. Seconder for the motion.
Paul Bryant, Far Western.
Speaker.
Where are you, Sussex?
Speaker with the argument, please.
Okay. Consistent with the theme of RSL New South Wales' enhanced support for veterans and their families, we recommend that the annual reporting requirement be upgunned. Current SBAs for sub-branches really only report on finances and membership. An additional and optional in recognition of our hard-working secretaries, because it will put a bit more work on some people, should be added that reports on, perhaps in the annual report, or perhaps, as someone has suggested to me since we drafted this resolution, through some sort of online portal on occurrence, perhaps, that highlights the many notable achievements of sub-branches and districts during the year in support of RSL New South Wales charitable purpose. The current RSL New South Wales annual report really only tells us the stuff that Defence Care does. It doesn't tell us about all the other things that are happening right across the state that are being done by sub-branches and so on, and districts. There are many excellent initiatives and stories across the state that are not receiving the exposure and profile they deserve. There are many thousands of volunteer hours being applied to support these initiatives. This information could be used for RSL New South Wales annual reports going forward, advice to the media, and that highlights to the veterans and the wider community and our RSL community the value that we bring. We think this would be an important initiative to help highlight what we do as a league. Thank you.
Does the seconder wish to speak at this time? Okay, any speakers against the motion? Yeah, microphone 6.
Derek Leslie, Northern Metropolitan. I'm proposing an amendment to this motion. I understand the word may gives scope for sub-branches not to opt to do this, but I'd like to see the word optional in there before the word attachment. They may submit an optional attachment. I would not like to see this as an imposition on all sub-branches and district councils. And I say that because I understand the volunteer nature of many of our secretaries and the fact that they're hard-pressed, as they are already.
Does the proposer need to respond?
Derek, we went to the same English school, I think. Optional and may. The intent of may, as you said, was to make it clear this would be an optional thing for those sub-branches that had good stories to tell and wanted to tell them. And we do recognise there is an imposition that some may not wish to take up. May optional, may optionally. How about that?
Speak. Another speaker yet?
Yeah,
microphone 4.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. David Clark, Western Metropolitan. Whilst I don't disagree at all with the suggested amendments, it's my understanding that protocol and years of practice have forbidden amendments to any motion put to Congress, and neither amendment should be allowed. I'm not opposed to the amendments. I think they're quite good, but you're setting a precedent by allowing amendments to anything on the floor. They should not be permitted. Thank you.
Taken on board. Thank you. Okay. I'll show of hands. Can we leave the motion as it is? Show of hands. Against, declare. It's got the ayes. So any more speakers for or against the motion? I therefore put the motion. 1 for or 2 against. Yeah. 87.8. I declare the motion carried. Yeah. I'll just clarify amendments to motions at Congress. I've been reminded that motions can be amended at Congress if it's constitutional. Not constitutional, sorry. Not constitutional. Not constitutional. So that's again the word not, or if may, or optional. We're all on the same page.
19.
Okay, motion number 19, upgrade to Regimental Square. That RSL New South Wales make representation to the City of Sydney to assess the usage of the intermediate area surrounding the memorial and potential upgrade to the western face of the memorial and the eastern forecourt to promote a more respectful use of the memorial space. The proposer is Kirribilli. Could I have the proposer, please?
Yes, Bronte Pollard, Delegate Kirribilli Sub-Branch, and I propose the motion.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Hornsby. Want to speak on the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my supporting argument, I've given a bit of, I'm sure everyone's aware of the RAR Regimental Square Memorial, where it's located and what it stands for. There's information there in my supporting argument if anyone's unaware. And just so you know, I don't have a vested interest because I'm a sailor, so, you know, I'm looking at that. Having attended meetings at Anzac House on a number of occasions, it's always sort of been in the back of my mind, and I've been a little bit dismayed of how the regimental square is used. I'm all for people using our memorials and using the space, as it brings to the fore the sacrifice and service that everyone has put in and those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice. But attending Regimental Square, or actually, sorry, following a very emotional comment at one of our sub-branch meetings by a member who was Vietnam in the regiment with his brother, and his brother never returned. He was incredibly emotional about how the square was being used. And I ask those of you who do go to Anzac House, the square is on the back door of Anzac House, and you go there and there's people standing at the western face using the wall of the memorial as a coffee bar. They're butting their cigarettes below plaques where the names of those who've made the ultimate sacrifice are named. It's unconscionable. I just can't reconcile any of that behaviour. The planter boxes are riddled with ash cigarette butts. The City of Sydney on their website says that it's one of the significant memorials in the city, and the way it is being treated at the moment it just does not reflect that. The Anzac Memorial in Hyde Park has its own legislation which is enforceable by law, that you're not allowed to sit on the steps. The cenotaph in Martin Place has a chain barrier around it, and you know, we rightly arrest people who get in that barrier and climb upon the memorial. So why would we have a monument, a memorial for the regiment that is allowed to basically being used as an ashtray and coffee bar? Thank you.
Any more speakers for or against the motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bob Weir, Ostermere Thirroul. I'm a member of the RAR Association New South Wales branch, who is the custodian for that memorial. I agree with the motion, but I'd like to submit a small amendment that RSL New South Wales submit the proposal to and advise rather the committee of the of the RAR New South Wales branch of the submission to Sydney City Council.
Yeah.
Before it goes through.
Just a copy. We can agree to that without a motion.
Just so we'll consult, we'll consult.
We'll
He's
send
saying
a copy
rather
of the
make a
letter.
representation of the council.
Don't need a motion.
Can I just say, would we'll keep a copy of the letter to the association to keep you in the loop, so to speak? You don't need an amendment to the motion because...
Well, I'd like to see the association advised prior to the letter going to council.
That's what I'm saying. That we will keep you in the loop.
Yeah, but before it goes to council. So that they're aware that it's not going to come out of the blue.
Maybe back to the proposer of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a right of reply to that. As I've mentioned in our previous motion about shared responsibilities, which was passed with a significant majority, I would consider the Royal Australian Regiment Association a stakeholder in this decision. So I wouldn't imagine that would go ahead without their consultation anyway.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further speakers? Yes.
Mr. President, Jenny Ross Henry from Tea Gardens. As a Vietnam widow, I've been appalled when I've gone to the RAR Memorial to see exactly what has been described here today, whether it's advised to the RAR committee or not, I wonder whether we shouldn't also approach the state government because there must be some jurisdiction on the road on that western side of the memorial. It really is appalling, and I'd never thought to put a motion in that we should do something about it. I've just often nodded my head and had a bit of a tear about how disgraceful it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more speakers for or against? Okay. Without further ado, I'll put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. %. Again, someone with a big thumb. I declare the motion carried.
Number 20 down the bottom.
Okay, motion number 20. Kokoda Trail transfer. That the Returns and Services League of Australia call on the Honourable Scott Morrison MP, Prime Minister of Australia, to transfer the responsibility for the identification, protection and interpretation of our wartime heritage along the Kokoda Trail from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, DFAT, to Department of Veteran Affairs, DVA, proposed by Camden. There's a Camden proposer.
Mr Chairman, Ian Richard Evan, President of Camden RSL. I propose this motion.
Ian Richard Evans. Yep. Seconder for the motion? Matraville. Speak on the motion.
Mr Chairman, the supporting arguments are written in the notes provided.
Seconder wish to speak? Anyone speak against? No one speaking for and against? You finished, Ian? You wish to say something more?
Yeah, just something more. This is really just to bring it into perspective. The Department of Veterans Affairs are, in note, do a fantastic job of military heritage and also providing services at Gallipoli and also in France. Unfortunately, the way that the Kokoda track is administered at the moment with DVA, the DVA have successfully planned and developed a management plan for the Kokoda track 2014-2018, where Department of Foreign Affairs failed even to note some of the centenary and other things that go on in the Kokoda track, and they're basically it's just left to anybody who wants to do anything about it. I just think that with the amount of work that some of the people that take guided tours to Kokoda these days, including many of our younger people, which are sponsored by RSL clubs. I know that it's a commercial enterprise, but these people are going up there. The track and everything is not really being maintained, and I just think to get it in perspective, that if we can get it into the DVA, and at the moment it's ludicrous to split the responsibilities between two departments.
Any more speakers for or against? Sorry? No one? Number 8.
James Lyle from St George's Basin. I'd just like to agree with the motion. Haven't spent a lot of time in Borneo. My wife's grandfather was a prisoner of war and he died in the Sandakan prisoner of war camp. On arriving there about 15 years ago, I was appalled to see the state of the memorials in Kuching, in Sandakan and in Ranao. And as a consequence of dealing with the Department of Veterans Affairs Wargrave people, anyone who travels to Borneo now will see, through the efforts of the people associated with that all their memorials, including the VC Starcevich Memorial down in Beaufort, have been completely renovated, and money's been also allocated to other memorials that are privately owned up there to improve it. So if the DFAT is not prepared to help, I can assure you that DVA through Officer Wargraves will, with a bit of pressure from either associations like the RSL or individuals who go there to have a memorial of their departed, whether they be family members or friends or whatever. Thank you.
Are any more speakers for or against the motion? Yep.
Yes, David White, Engadine RSL sub-branch. I'd like to make the delegates aware of memorials and places like the Kokoda Trail. As a visitor to Vietnam some 26 times, I have in the past been a custodian of the Long Tan Cross. The responsibility for taking care of that was passed from Veterans Affairs and the locals to Foreign Affairs and Trade. So the consulate in Ho Chi Minh City is responsibility for that particular memorial and battlefield. They maintain it in cooperation with the expat community in Vung Tau. So I'd like to make delegates aware that there are practicalities as to who looks after things. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, delegates, you've heard. Is there any more speakers? You've heard the debate. Okay, I'll put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. I declare the motion carried, 90%. Okay, moving on to motion 21. Anniversary of the National Service Medal to Merchant Navy and Mercantile Marine. That the Returned Services League of Australia New South Wales branch requests that the RSL National make representation to the Federal Government and to the Minister for Defence to recommend that the Governor-General, that the following amendment be made to the determination under the Anniversary of National Service Medal 1951-72 regulation. To be that members of the Merchant Navy and the Mercantile Marine who registered for national service had that service deferred by the Minister and then had the capability of volunteering removed due to the nature of their mercantile marine service being in the public interest, satisfies the requirement applicable to be awarded the medal, proposed by Gresford. Can I have the proposer, please? Number 6.
Fred Good from Maitland RSL sub-branch, also Vice President of the Hunter Valley District Council, Mr Chairman. Gresford's unable to be here today, so I propose that motion on their behalf.
Can I have a seconder for the motion? Yep. Okay. Do you want to speak on the motion?
The motion supporting argument is printed, Mr Chairman.
Happy with that. Seconder, do you wish to speak? Anyone want to speak against the motion? No, somebody up there. Number 4.
Just a point of clarification, the Merchant Navy, Bob Harding, Merchant Navy sub-branch. The Merchant Navy only exists in time of war. every other people who sail at that time are part of the merchant marine, so defined by government regulations. So there's a few problems in this motion that I see, but the merchant navy only exists in time of war, and as you said yesterday, Mr. President, it's anybody who puts on a uniform. Well, most merchant navy sailors I knew in World War II never wore a uniform, but they are entitled to be members of the RSL for their war service.
I'll just clarify that. That was a merchant sailor's uniform. Sorry.
I can't get up.
Is there any more speakers for? Yes.
A point of order. A question, Mr. President.
Yes.
This organisation, were they responsible for not loading Japarra during the Vietnam War and left us very short of material?
Yeah. No.
Oh, sorry, John Tranby, Moree.
Judge.
We were very short of material for a very difficult period because the Japarra wasn't loaded or sailed until the Navy took it over.
Yeah, true. Okay, quiet please. Speaker at number 5. For or against the motion?
No, just as classification about who loaded the Japarra. The Army formed 11 Terminal Regiment to do that. They were, actual fact, in uniform. They did that job, Japarra and Boonaroo.
Any further debate? Speakers for or against? I'll throw it back to the proposer. You wish to speak?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Seconder? No? Okay, delegates, I put the motion. 1 for the motion or 2 against? No. 62.3% is enough for the motion to be carried. I declared it carried. Okay, motion number 22. General standing policy on various matters. Okay. Number 22 is legal assistance to veterans. That RSL New South Wales make representation to the Law Society of New South Wales to approve volunteer category practicing certificates for lawyers working pro bono with accredited veteran advocacy centres and not just with the community legal centres. Proposed by Central Southern.
Lee Cordner, Central Southern District. I move the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Seconder for the motion.
Colomits Gerringong, I second the motion.
Okay, I'll speak on the motion.
There are many lawyers who provide vitally needed pro bono assistance to our veterans on a whole range of matters. We are grateful that this occurs, and we hope it will continue, and indeed we need it to continue. However, provision of pro bono legal support is a complicated area as outlined in the written submission that accompanies this motion. Provision of this support often comes at considerable cost to the lawyers involved in terms of their time, lost opportunities to do other work and professional expenses. What the submission urges, in a nutshell, is for RSL New South Wales to lobby the Law Society of New South Wales to broaden its pro bono policy so that it is extended beyond lawyers working through the current community legal centres, but to also include lawyers supporting veterans through veterans-related centres. Thank you.
Is there any speakers against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak on the motion?
Yeah, I think so, Chair, notwithstanding there's no speakers against.
Yes.
Delegates, we have the opportunity to benefit from the goodwill and skill of many retired and non-practising lawyers out there who want to contribute to a worthy cause. Right now, many such lawyers contribute their time to refugee centres, to animal welfare organisations and to community legal centres, all worthy causes. So my question to you, delegates, is are veterans and their families not an equally worthy cause? Of course we are. Delegates, the only obstacle at this point in time appears to be a clerk in the Law Society whose computer says no. In fact, my most recent feedback was that from said clerk with said naysaying computer, is that if we, that is pro bono lawyers, want to contribute to the work of the League, we can work at a community legal centre and triage our work in with all the other worthy causes in those community legal centres. I have no time. I don't have time for that, nor do many of the lawyers I know. Delegates, our forebears, the Vietnam Veterans Association or Federation, took up many. If you have no life like me and you spend your nights trawling through the case law, you'll see many cases taken up by the Vietnam Veterans Federation or Vietnam Veterans Association, which have set precedent, which now helps my generation of veterans. These precedent-setting cases were conducted largely with a lot of pro bono assistance. Why should we not now take advantage of the pro bono availability of pro bono support and start setting precedent for future generations of veterans? Take up the same fight that our Vietnam forebears took up. So delegates, as the RSL gets its voice back, it should properly lobby the Law Society on this issue. I commend the motion to the floor and urge your support.
Speaker on number 4.
Mr. Chair.
No, Speaker on microphone 4.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Lazar, Burwood. I'm one of those volunteer lawyers. For a number of years, I had to pay over $1,000 a year for the privilege, and I must say honour, of doing work for veterans for nothing. Just to clarify something that the seconder of the motion said, and I have this from a former president of the Law Society, it is actually a problem in the Legal Profession Act, in that to get a volunteer certificate, as Mr. Collins has said, you have to work at a community legal centre. That president said that because the work that veteran centres, etc. does is very specific, it doesn't meet the work of community legal centres. However, if you look, there are some very specialist legal centres that do accept volunteer certificates. I'm not saying anything against it, in fact I'm for it, but the Aboriginal Legal Centre deals with only one cohort of people. Now, if it's for them, but not for veterans, then it's discrimination against veterans. So please, I absolutely support the motion, and I hope that if you need somebody to go and talk to the Law Society, I'll do it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any more speakers for or against? Okay. Therefore, I put the motion to you, delegates. 1 for the motion, 2 against. .7. Declare the motion carried. Okay, we've come to the end of those motions, but we have got a motions from the Suspensions Committee, and whilst we get the copies out to everybody, they are getting a copy? Yeah. As well as it'll be up on the board shortly, we'll take a short adjournment.
kept especially for them. Yeah. We can get out here. Hang on. He needed to go. They're in here. One more vote on it. And then you can order your lunch on that. I've already ordered that. It'll be the first one waiting. No, they won't deliver. I reckon some of those are still in 98, 99. Oh yeah, that's what James did. Oh no, you can't see it there, mate. See a girl down there. Near the stage. She's a bit dark herself. That's yeah. Might be just this time. Yeah, well. I'll tell you what, they're only young. They've got up by what? 3%. Not many people up there. The contribution. I hope they come on board. Those that are around here and realise it will change things here. There'll be consequences that no one thought of. What we not many, but there are a few. And not no super means a lot. Right. I just want, I don't want to be like coming back here next year on Brexit. Just go on. You get some strong personality, genuine concerns about it. Corporate. When you change from corporate industry, will go about it. And she said, you please do it and stuff. Oh, no, but he knew he was in the midst of the pit fight here. And there's a bit of payback. Well, I reckon that the new guy will do it. I think he's going to go in there and beat up everybody.
And now it's 12.
Delegates, could you please take your
Have
seats?
to get another referral.
Called order. Could you please take your seats?
But now it's every. You see, some at the gym I go to with the exercise being doctors, some of them go 4 times a week. And they just keep moving. And then they come to be referred to back to the GP.
Quiet, please.
I'm with that one.
Just waiting for a couple more to get their seat, take their place.
Some enchanted evening, you can see a stranger.
Okay, has everybody got a copy of that motion? Okay, so we move into the suspension committee motions. And there's one motion. First off, I want the members, by a show of hands, do we vote to accept or reject the motion? Do we accept the motion? I don't think I might go the other way. Okay, the Intramural District Council Teachers Sub-Branch. The DVA Allied Health Referrals New Treatment Cycle. That RSL New South Wales lobby the Department of Veteran Affairs for a return to the previous system of allowing the referring doctor to determine the period of validity for a referral under the Allied Health Referral Scheme according to the nature of the condition being treated under the 1 year gap. Cap. Supporting argument. I'll please call on Patrick Medway.
Glenn Daly.
Oh, Glenn, you're doing it. Sorry, Patrick.
Yes. Glenn Daly, President, Intramural District Council. I present the proposal to you and just make some small submissions.
Can I
once
just
I have
wait?
a
Can I get a
seconder.
second? Can I get a seconder, please? Yeah. Yep.
Ken
Okay.
Stevenson from...
Yep.
Delegates, this will impact all veterans, indeed all ex-service people. And as detailed in the supporting argument, it's often difficult to obtain specialist appointments, particularly in the short term. And it also means that DVA clients will be faced with more travel to the medicos. Now, we've heard this morning already in the aspect of costs involved in travel, and somebody having to travel 1,000 kilometres to a specialist because the medical payments to the doctors are not appropriate. Well, this is in a very similar situation whereby we're going to require clients, DVA clients, to travel more often either to their GP or to their specialists, or indeed both. And it's an extra, could exacerbate their medical conditions in the first place, having to do that. So it certainly seems it's not a step forward for the organisation, but it's a step backward for the veterans. Thank you.
Is there a seconder wish to speak?
Ken Stevenson, Secretary Treasurer, Teachers Sub-Branch. Chairman, delegates, thank you. I realise I stand between us and a long lunch. I received a love letter from Kate Pope in the DVA telling me that she was changing my treatment cycle in my best interests. Currently, the D904 regime has on average a 12-month validity. I'll just speak about something I know personally to try and highlight the effects that Glenn just mentioned. I currently have a condition to exercise physiologist consultations a week, which of course have been fully approved. Looking at a worst case scenario, and I stress worst case, this won't happen for everybody. I'm fortunate to have a very supportive GP, but that means I'm going to have 8 referrals per year instead of 1. I'm going to have a report each time from the exercise physiologist to the GP. I'll have to consult with the GP. He will make a report. He may send me for scans, tests, pathology, and then a referral back to the orthopaedic specialist. To do that, I have to wait because he's a very good man and very much in demand. He, I know, will send me for further scans and or MRI, back to consult with him again. This all increases travel costs, time, doctor costs, specialist costs, costs for the allied health person. Now, the DVA tells us that the aim is to work us towards self-management of many of our conditions. And that's fine, except that every time I go to the EP, I never seem to get it right. I've always got to adjust the way I'm doing things. And the progress is measured by increasing weights or something like that, and I don't know when to do that. They are the ones, they're the professionals who know when to tell me to take up extra weights. The problem I see is that the current system already allows for this. If people are doing their job and have our health interests fully at heart, they can do all this anyway. They can make these intermediate steps. So I'm not against change. I'm not against saving costs and trimming budgets, but I don't believe that this is going to do it. As Glenn, my president, said, I think it's going to work against us, not in our interests, and I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Number 5, microphone number 5.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. Peter Mansbridge, Nelson Bay. I'm the alternate delegate. The delegate has left the room. So Russell's outside if anybody wants to go and talk to him. Good luck with that. There's been some changes made to the allied health care. And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that aren't aware of some of those changes or they haven't looked into it correctly themselves. The changes to the allied healthcare, and this affects me because I go to an exercise physiologist twice a week, and I have been doing for the last couple of years. So bring it on, DVA, because they can't touch me, okay? The reason being, and this is also for physiotherapists, which I see quite regularly, the go is with the treatment cycle, and this is the part of it here. They changed the treatment cycle for those members with a gold card stamped TPI on it. You are exempt from the treatment cycle. What that exemption means is this. You go to your GP, you get a referral, D904, to go to an exercise physiologist or a physiotherapist, okay? And off you go. If you've got the gold card stamped TPI on it, when you go and see the specialist, they'll put you through a treatment. You go through the plan or whatever. Now, what they need to do then is, you're exempt from the 12 cycles. After the 12th visit, you don't have to go back to your GP to get another D904 or get a referral. It's just automatically done between your specialist and the GP. They might talk to each other, but you don't have to go back. That's what the exemption is about. You don't go back. There's no changes made to previous to that for anybody else. The changes are exactly the same. The only changes they made was to those with TPI on their gold card. Everybody else is the same. After your 12 visits, so if you're on a white card and you go to an exercise physiologist or a physiotherapist or any other specialist, okay, after the 12th visit, all your specialist has to do then is notify your GP and say, listen, we've done the 12 visits, the treatment still needs to continue. The GP only has to just write off a form, send it back to the, you don't have to go to the GP, it's up to your specialist to talk to the GP. The GP sends it back and says, yeah, continue with the treatment cycle. You just keep going. So a lot of this that's been put in here is actually misinformation. It is, it's misinformation. Well, I'm telling you now, but I've told other people. On my sub-branch, I tell them each time this comes out.
Through the chair, shoot. Woo. Yep.
So, Mr Chair, that's what I'm saying. A lot of this is misinformation. People just haven't been given the correct information. That's all it is. To go back to the old scheme, thanks very much for shooting me in the arse and everybody else that's on it. Okay, because it just... When they changed this, it made it easier. Not harder, they made it easier.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Wrap up, please. Number 5, yep.
I'm against the motion. I think the motion should be withdrawn. It'll best be withdrawn. If not, don't vote for the motion, vote against it.
Thank you. Further speakers? Number 5?
I think I've still got my ears. Look, we're reading the motion right. The thing is that the exercise physiology and physiotherapy are exempt from the referral system. But in the case of myself, who's been a long time under care, and I imagine several other people in this room are the same way, we had a thing called an ongoing referral, which in other words our doctor used to sign and used to go for several years or whatever.
Yep.
That's now gone. That's what's gone. What's got to happen now is you've got to go back every 12 months to get that referral renewed. So that's the difference. That's the difference of how it is, and we should be into Veteran Affairs for pull their head in because they're doing the wrong thing again.
Thank you. Further speaker at 4.
Mr Chairman, other delegates, I'm alternate delegate for Nabiac. The delegate has left the room for a moment. I'm actually going to speak on this on the part of an allied health professional working with the D904s. I've been working with an occupational therapist for the previous 8 years. In that 8 years, it's been an easy, simple task. We get one D904 every 12 months for every veteran we see. Sorry, the colleague from Nelson's Bay, yes, what you said is correct, but incorrect in that it's not a simple process to get a re-referral to go on after your 12 visits. After your 12 visits, the allied health professional has to apply for you to get a 13th visit. If your GP forgets to fill the form in and you come in for a 13th visit, the allied health professional cannot treat you. And if they treat you, they're in breach of the DVA system. I am a firm believer in we need to lobby them to get them back to that once a year referral system. The reporting system has changed, and I agree with the reporting system in that after 12 visits, the allied health professional must write a report to the GP or the specialist saying what is going on, and that's been the case for the last 8 years that I know of as an occupational therapist. But having to get a referral every 12 weeks, it's not as simple as just faxing a request off. We fax a request for a D904. If the patient hasn't been to the doctor in the previous 4 weeks, the doctor's office write back and say, sorry, we haven't seen that client recently. We've then got to get in touch with the client. The client then has to go back to the doctor, get a new treatment plan. It is actually a real headache on behalf of the allied health professionals. And I just feel as RSL and working as a welfare officer in our RSL, yes, the RSL should be lobbying DVA to get it back to that 12-month system. And so I urge everyone to really consider voting for this motion. Thank you.
Is there any more speakers? Yep. Up the back.
Yeah, James Lyle from St George's Basin. 2 weeks ago, the DVA Wellness team arrived in Nowra to give us a presentation. Now, I was sceptical about what the changes were about. My initial reaction was it's put more money in the doctor's hands. Why would we want to go to the doctor more than once a year? But they explained it to me that veterans with these plans are seeing their doctor once a year. The doctor is not knowing if they're getting better, they're getting worse, whether they've got other problems. So the idea under their wellness program is for the doctors to manage the health and wellness of the veteran. In my case, it doesn't matter because I'm a TPI, so I don't have to have all that stuff. But in reality, it is more to do with the veteran being seen by his doctor more often. Now, if you're a white card holder or you're only on 100%, you have to get a new referral every 12 visits. As simple as that. That's under the new scheme. And as they explained to me, as I said, it is to ensure that the doctor sees you more than once a year. Now, I just say, go ahead with this. I agree with this, that we should maybe vote for this motion, but bear in mind that their idea is that you see the doctor more than once a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? No further speakers. I put the motion. 1 for the motion, 2 against. $86.8. I declare the motion carried. Well, that, delegates, the end of the motions. Okay, next up is, and thank you for your thank you for playing the game, yeah. Okay, next up is 2020 Annual Congress. In 2012-16, an expressions of interest and subsequent ballot was conducted to choose from a list of potential venues to host State Congress for the following 3 years. Given the attention that has been focused on drafting and consulting about proposed constitution, RSL New South Wales was unable to conduct a similar process prior to 2019 Congress. As such, in accordance with Clause 21(3) of the RSL New South Wales Constitution, the Board of RSL New South Wales is recommending to delegates that the 2020 Annual State Congress be held on Sunday the 25th through to Wednesday the 28th of October 2020 at the William Inglis Stables, Warwick Farm. Do any delegates have any comments? That's good. It's too quick. Sorry, quiet please. Microphone number 4.
Glenn Daly, Intramural District Council. Questions, if I might, through the chair. Will the RSL arrange transport as they have this year from the airport or the station, and how will that happen, bearing in mind we're looking at a lot of travel either from Mascot or Central Station, and has that been thought about? And can you give me an approximate cost of accommodation in regard to that, because I've looked on the net and there's some rooms out there $600, $800 and $1,000 a night. So can you just advise what arrangements that you may have made with William Inglis Stables? Thank you.
There's always a stretcher in the stables with the horses, Glenn.
That's probably a good one.
We've got no cost, have we? Just bear with me. We can't give a cost.
I need to get out so you can see me. I don't do it. Take the time, mate.
Order? Yeah, thank you. I was just checking the costings and that. Look, I can't give you a costing, Glenn, but there's a lot of accommodation around the Liverpool, Warwick Farm area, not just at Inglis's, okay? There's a railway station right there and it's not a far walk, and you could piggyback your mate, but there will be shuttle buses from the railway station provided. There's a train from Central, those people who are coming down from the country areas and all that. So it is accessible by rail, train, rail and bus, rail, buses and cars, and accommodation in the areas, like I said, between Warwick Farm and Liverpool, and you don't have to stay at Inglis's. I can't give you the cost at Inglis's. You said you've done some homework, Glenn, but I'm sorry, I can't give you the cost there, what it is. But other than that, does anybody else want to say anything, comment?
Question?
Oh yeah, sorry, number 2. Oh, sorry, yeah, down there, no number there, number 1.
Mr Chairman, Ron Mossink from Murwillumbah sub-branch, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the generosity of the 22 sub-branches and district councils who made donations to the sub-branch support and assistance fund, without whom I wouldn't be here. As the first delegate stated, the shuttle bus from the airport to Albury is very convenient for delegates and very simple too, because Albury is a smaller centre with concentrated accommodation. The last 2 congresses that were held in the Sydney CBD, I was able to find very cheap accommodation within walking distance of the Congress venue, which saved my sub-branch the cost of... I have a free travel pass, by the way, but I was able to walk and therefore didn't require taxis. I looked for accommodation near William Inglis Stables on the day that the venue was recommended, and the documentation published on the RSL New South Wales website. Yeah. There was no accommodation left in William Inglis Stables at the Sofitel, and the nearest I could get was Mount Pritchard, which is about 1 hour's travel by public transport, or a significant taxi fare. So I would argue that just as Sydney is the transport hub of New South Wales, the Sydney Central Business District is the transport hub of Sydney, and that for delegates from all parts of Sydney, as well as interstate, a CBD venue is far more convenient and less expensive.
Just in response, you can still stay in the CBD. It's a train trip out to Warwick Farm. It's safe on our trains in Sydney. Yes, number 2. Yes.
I am ambivalent about camping in stables. I'm not sure whether we're going to be seen as nags or thoroughbreds. But I just wanted to ask the broader question. I understand previously there was a big push to lock in a venue or an area for 3 years or so. Are we proposing to do that this time? It seems not.
No.
And the other thing I just wanted to air, it's I guess a personal view, and I think it's actually a good thing for RSL New South Wales to get out of the city from time to time into our regional areas for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is to support those regional communities that are going through hard times, through drought and so on. And also, it provides a much better opportunity for us mixing and meeting and camaraderie and so on, as we've been able to do here in Albury. Whereas when we go to the big city, all the city slickers go home, and the rest of us are left scattered across a large area. And I think that's less than ideal. So I just wanted to, I guess, fly a flag for not dismissing the possibility or the option of conducting future congresses in regional areas. Thank you.
Number 2.
Good afternoon, delegates. Mr. Chairman, I wish to just say...
Who are you? Identify.
Mr. Matt Helm from Queanbeyan RSL. Now listen, the last time I stayed in stables was in 1969 at Singapore HMS Terror. We used to call the accommodation there the stables. I don't wish to do that again. But what I'm saying is, why don't we consider having the Congress here?
No. It's too far from the border.
I said consider. And the second option being, do we really have to make the decision today to have the conference next year at Warwick Farm, or can we explore other avenues of venues?
Yeah, Congress sets the venue, date and venue.
Okay, Congress sets the date and motion.
Beg your pardon?
Sorry, the motion is set here today. We set the Constitution. We set the venue for the next Congress here today.
Yeah, I understand that, but...
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. There's another speaker. Matt, you want to finish off?
I haven't finished yet.
Okay.
I wasn't asked whether I was finished.
Okay.
What happens is that I get the feeling here that I understand the Constitution dictates that we decide where the conference is on that rotational basis, but I'm getting the vibes like Darryl Callaghan that a lot of people here aren't very comfortable going out to Warwick Farm, and I'll leave you with that.
Okay. Number 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. John Tranby, Moree. I recently attended a local government conference at very location as Warwick Farm. They're correct, there's not a lot of accommodation within walking distance or taxi distance. Local government put on shuttle buses to take us to our accommodation, which is quite an expensive way for whoever pays for it, and sometimes a 15 to 25 minute bus ride to get to your motel or hotel. So nothing suitable is within walking distance or taxi distance.
Okay. Is there any more speakers? Yes.
Stuart Christmas, delegate for Berry. Very simple. If you vote against this motion, you're going to have to sort out another venue. That gives you your option.
careful, that leaves us now, I don't know.
Well, we just have a question.
Okay, let's have a look where we're going now. Any more speakers? Liverpool. Wouldn't Liverpool like us to have it at Warwick Farm? Okay, if there's no more speakers...
Yeah, one more.
Oh, sorry. Yep. It is Liverpool.
Thank you, gentlemen. Jeff Tate, Vice President of Liverpool City Sub-Branch, and also the delegate. I, like most of you in this room, were pretty shocked when I read it was going to be at Warwick Farm. There is accommodation around the place. There's a hotel within a kilometre from the place, but I wouldn't stay there. Hang on, there is another accommodation on the Hume Highway which is called the Warwick. It's a large hotel with eating facilities and that there as well. I suggested to Ray that they should have chosen Liverpool Catholic Club, which is not that far away. It is a huge hotel with about 600 rooms plus all the facilities of a club. There was transport from the station out to there. I've got to agree, to get to Warwick Farm, I'm probably the only lucky bloke to do it because I don't live that far from it. But I agree, what should happen is that the accommodation, if there's any left at Warwick Farm, should be put aside for the country people. And they should be given the first pick there. The facility's only been open about 12 or 18 months. It's been being built for about 3 years. But everybody I've heard that's gone there said it's magnificent. Our sub-branch will put on pony rides if you want to have them. But I personally want to go there because I I had to travel 5 hours to get here. Now I can travel 5 minutes. But I see where the board had to go. They had to pick somewhere. And for my communications, that was the cheapest venue they could find in Sydney in that location. Now, if you go back to, those people went to Rooty Hill years ago. The Catholic club's set up like that too. So if you want to, I think there should be transport to go from there to the venue. But if I was looking for accommodation now, I'd be looking there or up at the Warwick. There is other places in Liverpool, but I can't. And the problem about Liverpool is, once there was a motel there, now there's a 30-storey building. The place is just rocketed through the roof. But also you can go to Bankstown, look in the Bankstown area. Bankstown Sports Club's got a large travel lodge on top of it.
Okay, let's leave it there.
Anyway.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, what I'm going to do, delegates, is put it to a vote, the motion, put this as a motion, Congress. So can I have a show of hands who wants to go to Warwick Farm for the 2020 Congress? Who's against going to Warwick Farm? I should have started that way. Okay, I suggest then that the only option we've got really is that you let the board, we don't go away today nominating where we are for the 2020 Congress, but you leave it to the board with consultation with you, the membership, where we do the 2020 Congress.
Somebody up there with their hand up, Ray, and you.
Does anybody want us
Behind 5?
behind 5? No?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Mr.
Graham.
Chair. Graham Doxey, President, City of Albury RSL Sub-Branch, and also an Albury City Councillor. It has been an absolute pleasure having you here for the last 3 years, and I offer you an invitation to return.
Okay. Okay. I just want, is everybody comfortable with what I've just said? Okay, all in favour? Aye. Against? I don't say Albury, sorry, Graham, I don't mean come back to Albury. But Albury will obviously be on the agenda. Okay, well, we've closed that. Sorry?
I haven't got time.
That's what I'm saying, in consultation with the membership with their submissions and as soon as possible. But we'll get a circular out. Let's get a circular out. Yeah. We'll get a circular out early next year. No, on where the venue will be after a consultation with the membership, as I said. Okay, we all agree with that. Okay. I now like to, moving on, so I'd like to ask delegates to join with me in thanking the Albury City Council, the Mayor, the Australian Defence Force and Government House, Albury Entertainment Centre staff, Greg Alpin and St John Ambulance for their help here, but in particular thanking the Albury RSL sub-branch for hosting us. Can I... And Graham, pass that on. I don't think the Mayor's here, or the representative, but pass on our best to them. And it's been a great 3 years, and it's the facility and everything. I think that nobody's got any complaints about that, except for what could have happened last year, but I won't go back there. I do declare that our AGM, sorry, not yet, it's not closed yet. The draft minutes of this meeting will be available on the website by the 29th of November, 29 November. As in 2018, the board proposes that the chairman of the meeting will sign the draft minutes at the December board meeting, and a copy will be available at the next year's meeting and available on request by sub-branches or district councils. I'd like to thank the delegates for the participation today. It's been a very eventful day and a very in history day. I now declare the meeting closed for 2019.
Thank you very much to Ray and the members of the board, and indeed to all you delegates for powering through a lot of work this morning, so much so that you gave up that break and you're now moving into lunch instead. But delegates, special guests and those viewing online, as Ray said, that does conclude the AGM for 2019. Thank you very, very much for your participation today. I'd like to invite up now RSL Money to make the draw for the Bears for Schools. We have the winners to be drawn by Anne Roach, and when the winners have been drawn, you'll be able to contact Anne at the Exhibitors Hall where RSL Money has their stand.
Right. You come and draw it. Right. Two, please, right? Just push them around, no looking. Shut your eyes.
Right, the two winners for the Bears for Schools, for the sub-branches or the district councils. The first is Joe Kaplan. Joe Kaplan, Dress Picnic Point. And the second one, on this side, John O'Brien, Sub-Branch Secretary for Western Metropolitan District, City of Blacktown RSL Sub-Branch. Congratulations to you. Thanks for entering, and thank you to RSL Money for providing those Bears for Schools. Now, tomorrow, delegates, we will reconvene back in the hall. That's where you were yesterday, for the delegates and the alternate delegates for the third day of Congress. We ask observers to please head to the theatrette again, where you were yesterday. We'll now move to lunch, which will be served outside, tea and coffee in the hall, the exhibitors still in the hall. That does conclude today's proceedings, so after lunch you are free, you've earned that early mark. We'll see you. Delegates, there's one reminder though, that you please hand your voting devices in on the way out of the theatre. Remember that caution I gave you before, they're not handed in, there will be a letter in the post to you. The team from Anzac House will be outside ready to collect those. We'll see you back at the Albury Entertainment Centre tomorrow morning, it's 9 a.m.
I want to say one thing.
And Ray James to conclude.
Delegates, just as you're leaving the room, the board did meet earlier, and we will be on the 21st of November at our board meeting. We'll be discussing the membership fees. Okay, the subsidy that sub-branches pay for membership fees. We'll be discussing that on the 21 November, so you'll have something from that after that date. Thank you. Can you... Hang on, sorry. One at a time here. District Council Presidents, 2 o'clock meeting. Where at, Derek? In the hall next door. 1400 hours District Council Presidents meeting, please. Yes. Yes. Wait and watch this space. Business as usual. No more questions? Thanks.